everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another fabulous Lunch and Learn. So this one is really exciting because it was inspired by a different episode that we did, episode 5, that we were talking about marketing and Girl Friday and all this fun stuff. And then the three of us here, which I have Lam Miller and Christina Henry de Tessan below me. That's how it's showing up for me. We were talking about other things. We're like, that's a whole other episode. I was about to say a whole other margarita, but I found it inappropriate. But it's a sunny day here in Seattle, so I will say it. So we wanted to talk about a question that I get quite a bit, and I'm sure, Christina, you get it because you deal with a lot of our clients at first when they are coming to Girl Friday, and that is, this can be an expensive process. It also cannot be, but it can be. And will I make my money back? So with that, let's get into it, gals. Let's just tear into it.
Let's do it.
So what do you think, Christina, when someone says that to you? Because I know you get it. Will I make my money back?
It's such a good question, and I do get it, and I get the question, and I understand why they want to know that, and I think it's really important for people to do their homework. And I have a long, multifaceted answer to that question. So I'm going to just start, and then we can break it. But I think it's important to, yes, start by doing your homework and knowing the industry. Like, know how many books sell, know what's reasonable. There's so much information out there about different types of books. Know your genre, and do your research. There is information out there, so you can get some sense of numbers and be realistic about who you are and your platform and your access to your audience. So if you're a debut novelist, like, that is fantastic. But know that that's going to be, it's a long road and a long game to see a return on that. If you already have a business and this is going to be a marketing tool for you, you have a lot of options in the way you can use your book. So the first step is just to really take the time to understand the landscape and what publishing looks like today. More specifically, I think delving into nonfiction specifically, we work with a lot of people who have a business, they want to become the expert on X, and a book can do a lot for them. It's a great marketing tool. It can be part of a great marketing ecosystem and do things that other marketing tools can't do. So you want to be thinking about sort of the strengths of a book. But I think I would start by thinking about, who is your audience and how do you normally interact with them? Do you see them at conferences? Are you already doing speaking engagements? Not maybe at the moment, but in the future. Right. Do you want to begin to use it as a way to get speaking engagements? Do you do workshops or consulting in your business? Do you partner with others? Are there complementary ways you can work with others? So knowing where to find your readers and how they are going to interact with your material, there are a lot of opportunities there. As we all know, I think a book has a ton of leveraging, excuse me, you're gonna have to re-record that. As we all know, a book has huge legitimizing power. So it's going to, it can help you establish your brand if you're new. It can help you carve out a niche that hasn't existed before. So we've had clients who said, like, I wouldn't exist without my book. Like, my brand, I came into existence because I put this specialty niche out there, and then I built my business around it, and it made me it just made me more of an expert than the person next to me who just has an opinion, but the book sort of formalized that in a cool way. So you want to be leveraging that every which way you can. So maybe you're not looking at direct return on sales there, but certainly if you're getting more speaking engagements or getting more business or selling it as part of your speaking tour, like, those are all great opportunities.
That makes me think of, we've had 2 clients whose books, speaking of niche, but totally supporting their platform. Sally Gaglini was a very early indie client for Girl Friday. And her specialty, she is an attorney who specializes in representing child performers. But she wrote this amazing book, and it's mean, there are a lot of nuances about doing that work and doing it well. And she has this super cool book with a great cover, and she was thrilled to have like all of her body of knowledge sort of encapsulated in a book. And we have a lot of attorneys who come to us, but we have another one who did the defendant's guide roadmap. So if any of you out there are facing some charges, we have a book for you. But I think those are really fascinating, because not obviously they're going to be most appropriate to people in that world, and the people who, if you are a child performer, if you're looking for, those families, it may seem niche, but there are a lot of those folks out there. And when you need that book, you absolutely need it. And then they are sort of the codified expert, which is, yeah.
Well, I think that also speaks to what's still remains very cool, and what I love about books still today, which is that they have staying power. So in a world where everything is so ephemeral, and you can put all this time into blogs and articles and tweets, and obviously those are all great marketing tactics, and it gets you in front of people. A book is something where, like, it's a beautifully curated, definitive piece of, content. And I think it's really fun to see the different ways that people use that. So the nice thing is that Sally Gaglini's book is probably still the definitive book on the subject. So, and that's many years later. So I'm not sure you're saying that about tweets or blog posts in the same way.
Right. Oh my gosh, so true.
So
yeah. No, I was just going to say, going back to, I think I love the first point you made, which is sort of having the right expectations. But this also matches with this, because when you said that, it made me think of John Bolton's book, which, selling like hotcakes. I think it was number 2 on the bestseller list this week. I looked in the New York Times. He didn't really say anything new. I mean, we have heard this in snatches on CNN and in, op-eds and in blog posts and tweets and all over. But the book itself was a different and definitive form of his story. There was a snapshot of like the 2 bombshells coming out of it. But people are clearly buying the book because it offers them a different experience around that event. And going back to the first point you made, most of us are not John Bolton, perhaps not that infamous or as famous as Michelle Obama. So it reminds me of way back in the early days when I used to do publicity, and everyone wanted to be on Oprah. And it was when Oprah was in a different form. And that it just wasn't going to happen. And think about how much publicity in the platform of those 2 people, and they're selling those books. And Mary Trump, yes, they're selling books like crazy. But think of the reach of their platform, and then just scale it down realistically. It's fine that you're not John Bolton or Michelle Obama or Mary Trump or any of, a million other worthy people who are selling books like hotcakes. But most of us are not going to do that, and that's okay. And it does go to, so I think it's really wise to temper your expectations, to say, what is, am I going to make my money back, but also, am I going to sell 200,000 copies? Is that realistic? What are my channels for selling it? Because you're going to need to hustle. Those people are hustling. You better believe that their publicists have them hustling like crazy to sell those books and to keep them in the news. So that's something that I think that we like to tell people, and like to be very transparent and honest about. Every day you need to be out there promoting your message and selling that book. And the amount of effort and how many channels you try, to go through, and how creative you are in selling your book, there's a direct correlation between that and how many books you're going to sell. So it's not completely out of your control.
And I think there is a circular element. So the more you promote the book, the more it's going to promote you and create these other channels. So it is this incredible branding opportunity. It's an excuse to get out in front of people again in a new way. I think another thing I really still love about books is that it does deepen your loyalty and connection to your readers. So again, you can be a personality on Twitter, you can have this following, but if you want to be able to tell your full story, how you got to be who you are, how you got to be an expert, like really solidify your message. I think books are still really like one of the most effective things you can do. And again, it's a hard thing to quantify in dollars, but I think there's a payoff in the long run. So we had one client, Sharon Feeney, who runs a wellness workshop, and she ended up doing this really beautiful cookbook of healthy living recipes, and it opened all these doors for her. So she got into studios to do, to do yoga in front of different groups. But I think the other piece was that suddenly this book is on that bookshelf in the kitchen that they can, and that they're going to use for years to come. It's a resource, and it's something that, like, again, there's longevity to that, and there's sort of giving people something more. So I think there's value in that again, it's hard to quantify, but I think can be really meaningful if you're realistic about how how you define success and how it's going to work for you. So, and I think one other thing is just to get really creative. So I think you can say, I've written this book, and then just put it aside and hope that it'll work for you. But you can also, we've seen people just get really, really nimble and thoughtful about how to chunk up the content, repurpose it, use it for articles, be a guest blogger, just think, foreign rights, translations, audio, like what are different ways to reach your audience? What are different excuses to bring it back out there? What, is there a companion workbook to the original book? Like, how are different ways we can, use this material and really just not set it aside as a static piece, but then keep working it. So
I think that's so important. I think that's one of the greatest, it's one of the enduring publishing myths, along with, that authors write in their velvet rooms and send it off. They write with their plume. And then there's a magical editor who pays them millions of dollars for this amazing thing. And then the books fly off the shelves and no one had to do anything. And I know that we've talked about this a lot in previous lunches and
Lunch and learneds.
But it's a business, and you can't, I think about this a lot. It's certainly, I have experienced sort of having to confront you want me to ask who about my book and put myself out there. And even for someone who's as much of an extrovert as I am, and it was hard. And I felt a lot of sort of humility and shyness around, but this is too, you do have to put yourself out there in a really interesting way, and that can be uncomfortable for a whole bunch of people, and embrace it, because you can't open up to those creative channels that you're mentioning, Christina, which are so important, unless you really say, this is who I am and I'm standing behind it and willing to. I always think of politicians who have to go and ask every single person they know for money. And when I think about doing that, it like makes me break out in sweat. But it's, but it's a very similar kind of, I think that a lot of authors feel that, and can't you just buy it? Can't we just put it somewhere where then people will buy it and I get the money? And I'd like to talk about it, but not if I have to ask, and I totally get that. That's why I'm owning it. But it's not a good way to sell books.
No, but getting back to something that you said, Lam, I've heard your wise words before, is again, the core question of this episode being, will I earn my money back? Is that you were kind of comparing it to remodeling your house or doing a new kitchen. What were you saying about that?
Well, I was just saying, and perhaps by personal experience here, one of the questions that we ask at Girl Friday always of all of our potential clients is, what does success look like to you? And I asked that question because it's something that I stole from my late father, who used to ask that of people, and he was a dentist. But still, it holds true that I can't assume that what I would consider to be a success is going to feel or look like success to someone else. And we are in the business of fulfilling other people's dreams, not our dreams for them. And so there's such a wide range of reasons why people write. And some people success, it can almost seem like an obligatory question, like what's the ROI? And that's smart business, and I get that. And I would just ask people though to do some soul searching about, do you want to sell books because that will be validating in a certain way? Do you want to sell books because you need to? Like it's, if you don't make your money back on this investment, is that going to be a poor investment for you? Are you measuring success in all of the potential ways? Have you written a memoir that has been sitting in you for your entire life, and now it's out there and the story has been told and shared, and so a truth has been revealed that maybe was hidden before? Have you told a story about someone else that you think it's really, we have had people who have talked about immigrant journeys, about bringing stories to life that the rest of us don't hear as much as we should. So have you done the world some good by making that available to people? If you, do you have a consulting business and you wanted to put it down in a book and it actually just helps you do your everyday work, even if it's not flying off the shelves to people that you don't work with directly. So we've had people do children's books that were inspired by family, even though they're lovely books and, they would be worth it for anyone. So I would there is monetary success, and I'm not saying this to dodge the question, because I think that we've talked about all the ways that it is a super important question. But I think some of our authors who feel the most successful may not have been the ones who sold the most copies. And that's all there.
Love that.
But I did want to talk about some success stories. So we have had, a couple of things, because one thing that I love about my job is to getting to know our authors really well, just through our series of conversations about marketing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So that is very rewarding, just personally speaking. But we had an author that just had a book come out, Rick Allen, and his book is called Inside Pitch, and it's about the defunct Seattle Pilots, which was a baseball team that maybe people that aren't from the Pacific Northwest don't know about. Well, I didn't know about it, and I'm from there. But it was a book that, I know that the editor that we have here at Girl Friday, she calls it the little book that could. Like, that book has just skyrocketed. And it came out in May, and I do know that he has already made his money back, which is really exciting for him. Because another thing that I've heard you say, Lam, is just that you take one success and it feeds another, which is just good business. So when I first spoke with this author, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me sharing that he had several books in him. And he was passionate about this book, but he was hoping it would roll into the next one and the next one and the next one. Yeah. And so because of the success that he's had there, now he can write the next book and do that sort of thing. But I love that you said, I've heard you say about the halo effect. Like the first book, maybe not so much, but you're just finding your people and you're building your brand. And after that, keeps going and going and going. And I think I've mentioned this before, and one of our guests on an earlier Lunch and Learn, Catherine Kane, she wrote her book, which is just this week won so many awards. I'm so excited for it. But because of the fans that have reached out to her, that she's actually creating a novella that she did not plan on writing, just based on fans who read that book and they're like, wait a minute, we want to know about this kind of secondary character. So I love that it's almost like writing your own fan fiction.
Yeah, that is very fun. And it is true that people crave content. And if you think about how you encounter content out in the world, maybe you didn't read the first 50 blogs that someone wrote, but someone forwarded you one blog that was pertinent to you. So then you go back and you start reading that blogger and following them, or you start following someone else, or you think one tweet was amazing, so then you follow them. Well, with books, it's the same way. And if you find someone who really fits you, and in fiction and in genre fiction especially, this is so important, that first book might take a while, but the people who love you are going to find you. And then when your second book comes out, the people who didn't read or buy the first one, now they need to, and they have only found the second book, and so on and so on. And so those are the folks that, if you're they're building a writing career, and it's just like any other career. You're not a VP on day one. And so you start out, and in a very old-fashioned parlance now, you sort of work your way up the ladder, but you're earning their loyalty and their dollars with every new offering you give to them. And so you keep enticing them back into your world, and then there are halo effects for sales for that.
Yeah. And I love it as a reader when you read this article and you're sad it's over, or I'm sorry, you read this book and you're sad it's over because it's so good. And you're like, wait a minute, they have 4 other books. It's like a treasure hunt. You just get like
Exactly.
so excited, like, oh, yay. And you just want to buy all those books. So I love that.
Binge.
Yeah, that's how it is, man. Well, you guys, I think that we've talked about so many great things today. I appreciate your time. This is more than a bite-sized conversation now. It's kind of like a mega meal. We just kind of had one of those super-sized conversations. But I thank you for your time so much. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Georgie.
Thank you. So fun.
And I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.